Hello, this is Nicole Kali, host of Haunted Mid-Atlantic Tales, and this is episode 18. I'm a little nervous because I'm trying out a new hairstyle. Well, new for me, the side ponytail that the 80s definitely made notorious. And I also have amazing news to share about Black Rockers United. Nate, founder, and me, media director and associate, had an awesome appearance on Wave Farm, which is an upstate New York radio station that is also associated with NPR, and awesome Randall Martin, AV Services, and Anthony Gaithers, awesome Black rocker and a videographer. We're being given the opportunity to have a weekly segment for Black Rockers United, also that the different people that are part of our group can represent the scenes that they're part of, from Houston, where Nate is, to myself in the DC and the Virginia area, to Kim and Ali in New York City, etc. We're really thankful for the consideration and what it means, the possibility to empower ourselves on an international level and reach out to different people in the diaspora and let them know that they're not alone, that music unites us, and that we can all rock together. So, what does it mean to be haunted? What does it mean to have a spiritual experience? Well, for me, I grew up around people who were very spiritually attuned, whether they're part of the church, orthodoxy, or they just believed. What did they believe in? They believed in the afterlife. They believed in forces at play that humans couldn't control but we can perceive, and that have tremendous magical ability and perhaps just a residual energy that leads to hauntings. Hauntings, which can be just an imprint, not intelligent, just a memory, or intelligent, a spirit who knows how to communicate, and is often just a loved one who is reaching out to you, though not always, and letting you know that they're protecting you and that you're in their thoughts the same way that they're in your thoughts. For Dia de los Muertos in Mexican culture, they honor the dead by laying out an ofrenda, as we talked about in Halloween. It's not Halloween, it's simply a holiday that occurs around the same time. You honor your ancestors by putting the different items that were important to them and that also represent what you think is most important to them and to your culture as well. And it's that bridge to the other world, to the spiritual plane, that allows us to have these experiences, and they definitely vary. They're not always so welcoming and so friendly. Goes to Virginia, haunted places, and haunted Virginia definitely have a myriad of encounters that are very chilling and you wouldn't necessarily want to go through yourself, but it's a testament to, as much as humans differ, so do spiritual forces. What are your experiences with haunted stuff on the Eastern Coast, specifically DC, Virginia, Maryland, New Jersey? For me, the house that I grew up in Centerville definitely seemed to have a presence in it, like in the basement. And my grandma's house in the Midwest did. So whenever she came, it was kind of like that spiritual fortification accompanied her. And I really was inspired by that. And I think that it definitely opened up something in me too that I'm proud to share with you now. The Ghost of Virginia, a treasury of African American ghost lore. Chapter 80. Author's note. Harry Middleton Hyatt was an Illinois Anglican minister who, as a hobby, collected Southern African American folklore, and the hobby grew into a lifelong project. And in 1970, his collections were published in a monumental 5-volume set titled Hoodoo, Conjuration, Witchcraft, and Rootwork. We talked about this in the beginning of this series, but I think it's very important to reiterate, especially now. This 4,765 page set included more than 1,600 first-hand interviews with people from all across the southern US, including several sites in Virginia. And this rich anecdotal material was gathered from 1936 through 1940. The following items are excerpted from Volume 1, which includes the belief in spirits, ghosts, the devil, and the like, and is recounted here courtesy of the Blue Ridge Institute at Farron College. So, when they talk about collecting our history, and that is the tie, the bridge again, not just from the other side for the African diaspora, but to Africa, the motherland. It's something that we live even if we don't necessarily delve into that history enough to have the context. Ali Farka Touré said the same thing. The knowledge is there, the music is there, the food is there, the root work is even there, but you have to learn it to really respect it, and it's okay, It's not necessarily foreign to you, it's just something that is a distant memory. So let's reread one that I really like. Unseen Footfalls. Petersburg, in 1917, on Wych Street, in a section of town called Glanville. I was on the custom of coming home each night after finishing work and getting to a particular corner and then waiting for a friend. Then we would both pass on until we got to Clutchfield's Laundry, and that's where another friend of ours worked. The three of us would proceed on home together. Several months after that, though, on a rainy night, we were coming home and we heard footfalls. They were following us, and we looked and could not see anything. Then we thought the reflection on the street lamps hid a person from view, so we stopped and tried to look under the light to see if we could not see what was following us. But we didn't see anything, so we kind of kept walking faster. And we stopped again, and as we stopped, the footfalls stopped. We walked about 3 more blocks, and these footfalls continued, and they followed us until they got to where this boy always used to turn, who passed away on that corner. From there, we didn't hear it no more. So I spoke of this when I got home to an old man, right? An old man who had fought in the Civil War. And he said that's something that people can hear anytime. That there's a crater on the right hand of Wych Street, where unfortunately, many soldiers passed away. That people see things and hear things at almost any time of night. And that boy is just part of an ongoing legacy of tragedy in that section of Petersburg. Chapter 106, Historic Haunts from the Past. Author's note. One of the pure joys of writing these is research. Every once in a while, when I am scanning obscure and out-of-print books in the library archives or in used bookstores, such as old family histories, diaries, and the like, I occasionally find all but long-forgotten anecdote or vignettes about ghosts. And on an extremely rare occasion, a whole collection of supernatural cases can surface. And this happened about 15 or so years ago, 30 for us now, when I found the Works Progress Administration papers of James Taylor Adams at the Blue Ridge Institute at Farron College. Here were more than 200 ghost folklore interviews by Adams and his associates recorded mostly in Southwest Virginia, in the foothills during the latter years of the Great Depression, in 39 through 41. Many of these colorful pages from the past have been recounted in early volumes of the series. Thus, it was with great elation that early in 2006, I discovered another trove of historic references to the supernatural in Virginia, the governor's mother's ghost. According to the Virginia Landmarks Register, which we reference a lot and use many beautiful images from, there are at least 5 houses in Virginia named Blenheim. Only one is reputed to be haunted, though. It is 6 miles northwest of Bowling Green in Caroline County. This report was filed by WPA writer Selma Farmer on February 4th, 1937. Historical documents show that the original grant was made to the first landowner, Robert Taliaferro, who came from England in 1655. Blenheim, named for the family estate in England, was built by a descendant, Richard Taliaferro, in the year 1705 to 07, and was kept in the family for more than 100 years. It is a brick building in Flemish bond, 60 by 40 feet. It's also recorded that during the Civil War Union, General U.S. Grant relaxed under the shade of the great oak tree here during the encampment of troops waiting for the rendezvous with General Ambrose Burnside. The house was bought in 1806 by a family named Tyler. The ghostly legend, however, dates to 1846, 40 years after they bought it. As Farmer wrote, it is George Tyler's wife, who after the hardship of travel by coach to Roanoke, and horseback to Blenheim from there, found it too much for her, and unfortunately passed away about a year later in one of the spacious bedrooms. Tradition has it that the beautiful young bride was terrified and cried so for her own mother that en route, that her spirit still seeks her mother in that bedroom, and her husband. One of those who has acknowledged seeing Mrs. Tyler's ghost is a noted minister. He was accompanying that room as a guest while preaching at a nearby church. He was writing one evening at one of the desks when he heard the door open, and turning saw a strikingly lovely lady in an old-fashioned nightdress, long black hair streaming from her back, but also braided, holding her hand out to him. "What is it, madam?" asked the clergyman. Thereupon he reported the vision faded away. Others have seen the lady too, and the present owner, then in 1937, says that she has never bothered with people hanging around the farm. The son of the ghost mother, James Hodge Tyler, became governor of Virginia, serving from 1898 to 1902. Chapter 97, Tidewater Vignettes. Sweet dreams. Sweet dreams. How does a psychic know intimate and obscure details about an individual that he or she has never met before? That only that person knows. Does a spirit somehow convey the information to them? That's what many of them say. But what about an ordinary person not gifted with paranormal sensibilities to their knowledge? Can they too, at certain times, pass through the curtain that separates the earth world from the supernatural? Consider the remarkable case of Michelle O'Malley of Portsmouth. She had never before had any inkling of such ability. Then one night, a few years ago, she dreamt of her late grandfather, who passed over when she was only 10, and she remembered little about him. But one night, she had a vivid dream in which he appeared to her. He told her he missed his French toast, and she didn't understand, but when she told this to her parents, they were amazed. Her grandfather had loved French toast. How would Michelle have known this? In a second dream, he told her he had a message for her father. Tell him to get a pail of water. This had no meaning to Michelle whatsoever, but her father, Greg, was astounded when she relayed the information, because his father had often taken Greg fishing when he was a young boy, and had always insisted that he take a bucket with him to fill with water so to keep any caught fresh fish. This, of course, happened years before Michelle was born, and he had never mentioned anything about it to her. The dreams then continued over a period of time, and Michelle told of more things she had no knowledge of. Her grandfather asked where his uncle's Purple Heart was. It had been wrapped in a flag and long forgotten. In another dream, her grandfather asked where her father's lucky pencil was. She had no idea what he was talking about, but her grandfather then told her. He and his brothers used to go to a racetrack with his father, and he had a lucky pencil he always used to carry to mark the horses he wanted to bet on. Michelle had never heard that story either. Over the course of the years, she had more than 100 dreams in which her grandfather appeared to her and relayed more family details that had all been lost to memory. His name was Benjamin, so when she had her first son, she named him Benjamin. Her grandfather was apparently very pleased by this and told her that he would always watch over her and loved her. She felt that she was somehow blessed and that he was her guardian angel, Granddad. One night, he told her that by publicly relating these visionary appearances, she might be able to help people. So she did to millions of people by telling of her experiences on Unsolved Mysteries. Dual Dreams of Passing. Sophie Starnes is from the Philippines. She dropped by to have some ghost books signed. She related an account, though not involving Virginia, was so incredible that along with the fact that she and her husband Bill live in Williamsburg, I had to include it. During World War II, when the Japanese scripted young men in these islands, her two brothers hid out in the vicinity of Manila, where her father lived. An older brother had previously passed. One night, one of the brothers had a vivid dream in which his deceased brother appeared to him and alerted him of their father's imminent death. In due course, this brother learned that in fact his father had passed at the time that the dream happened. This in itself was not that unusual. There are countless cases where such premonitions are realized. What made this different, however, was that when this brother got in touch with his other living brother, who was at a separate location, he had envisioned the identical dream at the same time.
Late at night, on Poe's birthday, January 19th, a dark, unidentified figure appears.
There's this gentleman dressed in black who visits the Poe grave between 12 midnight and 6 o'clock in the morning and leaves 3 red roses and a half-filled bottle of French cognac.
He has been dubbed the Poe Toaster. And why the 3 roses and the cognac?
There are 3 graves underneath the Poe monument.
Haunted Places by Dennis William Hawk, Delaware, Newcastle, Kinsey John Homestead. The spirit of a woman in a white silk gown appeared in front of many reputable witnesses at a dinner party here in the late 1800s. One of the visitors had left a crying baby in a crib while she joined the other guest. Then someone noticed the baby had stopped crying and checked on the child. They found a pale-looking woman rocking the crib and comforting the baby. The woman wore a white silk dress with a pearl comb in her hair and soft leather slippers on her feet, and though she never spoke a word, the revenant joined the guests at the dinner table, but disappeared with a trace later that night. The farmhouse is now a private residence on DuPont Highway in Newcastle, Delaware. Ooh, what do you think about that, y'all? Like, she really hung out with them. DC, the White House, the Rose Garden. The ghost of Dolly Madison, First Lady, appeared in the Rose Garden during the administration of Woodrow Wilson. Dolly had planted the garden 100 years before that, but Mrs. Wilson gave orders to have it dug up. So workmen reported that Dolly's ghost appeared in the garden and kept them from carrying out their job. After that, no one dared hard Lighthouse Rose Garden. You can see the Dolly Madison House, Lafayette Square, and the Octagon for related stories about Dolly Madison. The Rose Garden is on the White House grounds. Maryland, Baltimore, continuing with our trend of Edgar Allan Poe. The Westminster Churchyard. Since 1944, and perhaps before that too, a mysterious dark figure has swept down on the gravesite of Edgar Allan Poe to leave behind 3 red roses and a bottle of cognac. This man is dressed in a black frock with a black fedora and scarf pulled up around his face. This nocturnal phantom has appeared every January 19th for the last 50 years. Despite crowds of people waiting at the site, the elusive presence has never been identified. In 1990, a Life magazine photographer even arrived with expensive night vision photographic equipment and captured the image of a man kneeling at the gravesite. The man wore a wide-brimmed hat, but the camera was unable to distinguish any facial features. Since then, the cemetery officials have refused to allow anyone to take pictures. Whether it's the ghost of Poe himself or one of his admirers has always been open to speculation and remained a mystery. The graveyard's in West Baltimore at the corner of Fayette Street and Green Street, and you can always research more by looking at his official website. Poolesville, Annington Manor. The ghost of an Oregon senator haunts these grounds, along with 25 other soldiers that died here. Colonel E.D. Baker passed away in the Battle of Ball's Bluff in 1861, and sightings of ghosts in the old battlefield along the C&O Canal caused the place to be nicknamed Haunted House Bend. Baker and the others are buried in a small national cemetery at the battlefield. Poolesville is in southern Montgomery County, at the junction of highways 107 and 109. Annington Manor is a private residence 5 miles west. At White's Ferry, Ball's Bluff Battleground and Cemetery is at the end of a dead-end road of Highway 15. New York. Newfane, the Van Horn Mansion. The ghost of Melinda Van Horn haunts the opulent brick mansion where she died in 1837. Her apparition has been seen in the upstairs bedroom and standing by a hall window. Melinda has even been spotted standing in the middle of the street in front of the house. During renovations, workers encountered a smoky figure under an archway on the second floor. Whoa. And they refused to return to work, so a new crew had to be hired altogether. The town of Newfane is in extreme western New York, 28 miles north of Buffalo, on Highway 78. The Van Horn Mansion is on 78th Street in Newfane. Another personal story from when I lived in Montclair. Shout out to my friend Kilo, who I love and definitely holds it down for the 973. The apartment that I used to stay in on Bloomfield Avenue was definitely like haunted, and not necessarily like a bad spirit, but they were definitely there and they had a tendency to move things around. New York City. Barker House. This brownstone apartment house was built in 1859. Its first owner, Alanda Hannah Barker, lived there with her 2 sisters for over 50 years. In the 1970s, the building was used as a sex worker's house, and it was voted for one of the 10 most interesting bordellos in New York by One magazine. In 1978, the house was purchased by Carol Boyd and Sandy Summer, who renovated the building for use as a townhouse. Before long, objects began to move under their own volition, and the sounds of classical music could be heard drifting through the house. Often, the suffocating smell of lavender would arise from nowhere. Many other inexplicable events occurred before Sandy came across the ghost of a 12-year-old girl with long blonde hair, standing in her bedroom. The women called the ASPR who investigated the house. The 29-page report concluded that the house was indeed haunted, with the back room on the 3rd floor being the epicenter. Other ghosts started to appear in the house, including a tall, thin man wearing 1700s clothing, a man who built boats in the garden, a grieving woman in black, a wild-acting woman, and even a furry dog. One other intriguing fact about this case: sex workers' spirits were walking the street in front of the building, which is now private residence in Manhattan, on East 26th Street. Pennsylvania. Berks County. The old Birdsboro Bridge. For over 100 years, the ghost of a woman wearing a veil has appeared to drivers here. Before the wooden bridge was torn down, she appeared to buggy riders crossing into Birdsboro, and some witnesses reported that she spoke to them about the reality of life after death. Today, the same ghost entices people to join her for the other side. She motions drivers to continue on the old approach to the now non-existent bridge. This area is near Baumstown, on the South Baumstown Road, the sharp turn that leads to Highway 82. Lehighton, the Rusty Nail Bar. Patrons see the face of the former owner and the old leather-covered cabinet door here. The face of the man started to appear after he passed away, not too far from the building. The cabinet is at the heart of the tavern, at the center of the bar room, under the cash register. Lehighton is in eastern Pennsylvania, 18 miles north of Allentown on Highway 9. The bar is in Palmerton, which is 3 miles east of Lehighton. Virginia. Charlottesville. Castalia. The revenant of a short woman with dark hair, wearing a striped dress, was seen on several occasions here. She has been observed in the upstairs bedrooms, the chintz room, and the lavender room. Castalia Mansion is a private residence a few miles from the center of Charlottesville. Fairfax and Oakton. In the old town parts of the cities, you can see colonial era to 1930s era spirits congregating in the town squares and walking down the streets. Richmond, the Glasgow House. This stately Greek revival-styled house was built in 1841. Its most prominent resident was author Ellen Glasgow, whose family moved there in 1888. She lived in the house until she passed away on November 21st, 1845. Her ghost joined several other restless spirits that she encountered while growing up in the old house. In her autobiography, she describes an evil, disembodied red face that sometimes appeared above the second-floor landing, as well as many other ghostly phenomena witnessed by family members and visitors over the years. You can also see the Hollywood Cemetery in Richmond for more. Chapter 29, Virginian Urban Legends. Again, the haunted junkyard in Bassett. There's an urban legend about a junkyard in Bassett. It seems that there are those who would say that they've seen the headlights of the abandoned cars flashing on and off. Plus, they have heard sounds of car doors opening and shutting, along with the radios playing. There are even sounds of vehicle engines racing and cars driving back and forth. Are these an urban legend? Or are they more? Chapter 32, Buried Treasure of Blackbeard on Assateague Island. Blackbeard and other pirates reportedly sailed the waters around Assateague and used the island as a hideout and as a place to bury their treasure. The same with the Old House Woods and Matthews. Now, whether this is true or not, standing on the island, looking out to sea, it does make the tales almost believable. One can breathe in the salt from the sea, hear the seagulls, and wonder if ships came to port to hide things that did not belong to them. As I swept my gaze to the sea and watched a couple of ponies standing there, I almost swore I could see a ghostly pirate ship forging through the white-capped waves. Then this vision vanished as I snapped some photos with my camera. If Blackbeard or any of his cohorts have buried their ill-gotten treasures somewhere on Assateague Island, then only they, the horses, and the seagulls know for sure where they are. None's ever been found. Hope that you enjoyed and you can share amazing supernatural tales of merriment and terror in the comments, and feel free to get in touch with me at my website, NicoleKali.com, and feel free to check up as well on Black Rockers United. Thanks for joining, and see you soon.